Guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we're taking a look at a knife from RealSteel. This is a new model for 2019. This is the Ippon. Very long, very slim style knife. And I have to say that initially I wasn't so sure what to think of it, largely because of that weird kind of top flipper here. But it has kind of grown on me over time. So let's go ahead and kind of work our way through here. Just to let you guys know, this knife did come from RealSteel for review, and I get it at a discount. So it's not cheap, it's not free to me, but I pay a lower price because RealSteel is getting some benefit out of the fact that I'm going to tell you guys about this knife. Although I suppose if I hated it, maybe it would be worse for them. Anyway, I don't hate it. So let's go ahead and work our way through the knife. And I will say this, I think if you want to pick up one of these, if they're not in stock yet, Justin over at White Mountain Knives is going to have these in stock, and you can use my discount code SHARPSTUFF to save yourself 10%. This is about a $70 knife, so that's not a bad deal. Okay, size and weight on here, which is something that does stand out to me right away. This is a very long, capable, large knife that carries like it's not even there. So 8¼ inches overall, 3 11/16 on the blade length, 4.5 inches on the handle, and only 3.2 ounces. So that's pretty nice. I will say the little, top flipper here adds about 5/16 to that overall length, making it closer to 4 3/4, I guess. But in pocket, you don't even notice this knife. It literally just vanishes into your pocket. Very lightweight. A great knife for those days where you're wearing, a light pair of shorts or, track pants or workout pants or something like that. Just carries like it's not even there, which I think is a huge win. Moving on to the blade here. Again, I think the blade is a win. It's slim. It's extremely thin behind the edge. It's thin blade stock overall. Full flat ground N690 steel with a really, really nice satin finish on it. The only real complaint I have about this blade is the way they've left a fairly significant unsharpened portion here. I'm not sure why the grind wouldn't go all the way back to the handle here. If you close the knife, the first thing I thought was, well, maybe that keeps you from cutting yourself back here, but there's actually quite a bit of distance there. Like, I don't think you'd be able to reach through and cut yourself. So I feel like they should have just kind of kept on grinding, but they stopped about 1/4 inch short of where, I feel like they could have. Anyway, it's not the end of the world. You still got tons of cutting edge here. You have a very long blade in a very slim package. Other than that, this blade is really, really nice. N690 steel for about $70 is, I think, very appropriate. The one complaint I will say, and this is a total aside unrelated to this knife, N690 is an okay steel. It's equivalent to VG10, something like that. And on a $70 knife, I totally get it, maybe even up to $100. But sometimes you see it on these really expensive customs or something. I don't know. European companies seem to think it's like a super steel, and it's not. And it's not even that expensive. So anyway, perfect for this application. I just don't like it on more expensive stuff. So blade here, I think, is a total win. It slices like crazy. The only thing I would say is it's a pretty dainty little blade there. So if you're the kind of guy who, wants something heavy duty and hard use, this is probably not the blade for you. But if you, a fairly light use type of stuff, or if you prefer a very slicey blade over something thicker and stockier, I think this is a great option. And, for me, most of the time, a thin slicey blade is great. Okay, I definitely like the confidence that a thicker, heavier blade brings, but not a problem whatsoever. Lockup and deployment, of course, the big point of discussion is going to be the top flipper there. But before we get to that point, let's point out it is on bearings. It is very smooth. The lock bar is easy to access. This is definitely a knife that you can fidget with quite well and quite comfortably. And, it basically does everything the way you'd want it to. Now, in terms of the way this top flipper works, it actually works quite well. Works good left or right-handed. You can see I'm going left-handed right now. I'm not sure if I can do this over the top stuff. Oh yeah, I still can, even with my left hand. But yeah, it works well for either bringing that index finger over the top of the knife and deploying it that way, or using the thumb deployment, which is how I normally use it. The other thing is, which is interesting, normally when we talk about how you apply pressure, we're talking about a back flipper, and you think about either light switching, that is pulling straight down, or push buttoning, that is pushing it in through the knife. Well, the same thing kind of works here. If you light switch this, which is, slide over the top of the knife, it opens fine. You can almost get a little nicer performance out of it by putting your thumb on top of that and putting down pressure on, sort of preloading a little bit and almost push buttoning it. Now, the question becomes, what do I actually think of this particular style of flipper? And that's a little tougher question to answer. You know, with this knife, does it make this knife in any way better by putting the flipper in that sort of odd location, right? Would it still work just as well if this were just your average, ordinary, either front flipper or back flipper? You know, I don't really think it gains a lot by having that different flipper, other than gains a little more attention from the knife industry, because we all look at it and go, that's kind of weird. I don't know what I think of it. In terms of actual use, I do kind of enjoy it. And I've really gotten to the point where, you know, I'll pick this knife up if I'm watching TV or something and just kind of fiddle around with it, because it's rather enjoyable to deploy the knife that way. And it does work very well. So in terms of function, hey, it's really, really good. In terms of form, I'm not so sure. You know, it maybe detracts something from the overall look of the knife. I will say this, after having this for a little while, I've kind of gotten used to it. And so now I actually find this to be quite attractive. Maybe you do as well. But for some people, I can see why this could be a little bit off-putting. Just for those of you who think it might not function well, it really, really does work well. The other comment that I've heard that a couple people have made was, you know, isn't that going to dig into stuff in your pocket? You know, isn't it going to, I don't know, cut through your pants or something? And not really, because when it's in pocket, you know, this is kind of protected. So this doesn't really touch anywhere in your pocket, because it's sort of got something around it that keeps it away from the edges of your pocket. All right, so yeah, works really well. You may or may not like the way it looks. I've actually come to a point where I don't mind it. In fact, maybe I even kind of like it. Now, moving on to handle construction. Again, there's some weird stuff going on here. So we've got this whole long row of standoffs in here that I'm not exactly sure what I think about it. Could the knife have functioned just as well, just with the two standoffs? Yeah, it definitely could have. I will say this, I took this knife apart, and all of these little posts, when you take the knife apart, you've got to kind of line them up and slide them in the way you do with the two standoffs here. So, my question is, does it add anything substantial to the knife other than maybe some visual interest? And I don't know, I don't really think so. If you want to see a picture of that, by the way, when I had the knife apart, I did post a couple of pictures on Instagram. I'll post them again so that when this video posts, you won't have to scroll down through days of pictures. You can find them fairly readily. If you're watching this months and months from now, sorry, you're going to have to scroll through my Instagram and find those pictures, but they will be over there. Okay, so in terms of construction, yeah, we've got this laminate carbon fiber. It's available in a couple of different options. There's I think a couple of colors of G10 and then the carbon fiber. They all range, around $65 to $75, I believe. Single position clip. Now I've got to make a special note about that clip. The way they've done these screws is not cool. All right, they protrude quite a bit. And when you try to slide some fabric up in here, it absolutely is going to catch on those screws. Especially, they could have at least used rounded heads on these, but these are really squared off 90-degree heads, which they use throughout the knife, which looks really cool, right? So they've got this sort of, screw head over here, and they've used it on these screws, and then they've used it here. So they're kind of going for a design theme, but what they should have done is used screws that fit flush to this pocket clip, and then it would have been much more functional. As it stands, every pair of pants I've tried basically stops here at this first screw, and unless you grab this and bend it out or something, you're not getting it around. So I've just carried it like that. It doesn't really impact how it carries. Obviously, it rides a little higher in pocket, but that's what I've done. And to me, over a few weeks of use, in fact, probably a couple of months of use, I haven't found it to be an issue other than, yeah, I would like it if it went in further. Okay, so let's go ahead now that we've kind of covered, oh wait, I guess we should talk about how comfortable this is in hand. And the answer is it's reasonably good. You can see it's pretty squared off corners, so it's not, it's not just molding to your hand the way, say, a pair of 2 would or something like that, but it's not uncomfortable. And when I've done any kind of work with this, I haven't felt like I've got a hot spot or any other kind of issue. It's workable. It's not the most comfortable handle ever, but it's fine. Certainly the retention is very good. The lines here that are milled in and the jimping is very functional, and I've got to say I do appreciate it from that perspective. So there you go. That's the handle. Let's go ahead now and get to some comparisons. There is another knife that came together with this one and is, sort of a new thing. This is N690 steel as well. It's a stainless steel frame lock rather than a titanium frame lock, and it's kind of an effort to offer a Megalodon at a mid-level price point. So there's a G10 Megalodon that comes in at around $50, I think. There's, of course, the full titanium and the titanium carbon fiber Megalodons that come in close to $200, and now there's another option for the person that wants only to spend around $100. There's this option in N690 steel with the stainless steel frame lock. Compares kind of well to this because they're both long, slim. The ergonomics on this one are going to be a little bit nicer, and of course you've got that recurve, which you may or may not like. More discussion on this when we get to the full review. Here is Rat Model 1. You can see similar size, although the Rat Model 1 is going to be quite a bit heavier. It's also going to be a little nicer in hand, and a little more durable there. This is a knife that I feel like you could beat on quite a bit, where this one not so much. What else have we got here? Let's throw in a pair of two, since it'll give you guys a good idea of the size range here. They're basically the same size. Another great knife that I find works well for just a very slim, lightweight carry is the Kershaw Knockout. So I'll throw that in there as well. Okay, so those are the comparisons I've got for you. I don't think we need as many as usual. This is a little bit of a different knife, so it's hard to find sort of knives that compare to it like to like. My overall thoughts here, I think this is an attractive design. I like the oversized pivot. I like the slimness of it. I like sort of the Quaken style where the blade totally disappears into the handle. I like the functionality on the top flipper. I guess that's the only thing we can really call this. It's not my very favorite thing, and can I answer the question fairly for you whether or not this knife would work just as well or better if the flipper was in a different location? No, I can't, right? You'd have to kind of remake the knife, but I can tell you that in the location it's in, it works really well. So do I recommend this knife? Yeah, if you like it, if you like this style, if this is something that appeals to you, absolutely, it works very, very well. Now, you may take one look at this knife and think it's the ugliest thing ever, and obviously in that case, then you shouldn't buy it. But if you think, if you're just not so sure about the functionality, this is a highly functional knife, well put together, performed really, really excellently for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you soon.